Okay, good evening. Again, we're learning for Fur Shleim Elimelech Zev ben Rachel had surgery today, and for Hadassah Bela Bas Frumet Rachel, it's a Shem member whose wife is unfortunately having chemo, and Yonis, I'm not telling you who, Yonis and David ben Devoira Rachel, that's Rav Yonis and David, Lazain Gesund, Shev the Richter Refuah. Okay, we began yesterday Masechta Horayos, and we saw that we discussed the Par Helam Davishel Tzibor. What does that mean? That if Bezdin goes ahead and paskins in a devar that you chayv karis, if you do it b'mezid, and shogeg, you're going to bring what? You're going to bring a chatas. So we always use the name chaylev. Chaylev, chatas chaylev. That's the easiest thing to go ahead and do. Chatas chaylev. So if Bezdin would paskin that chaylev is mutter, and a person would go ahead and eat the chaylev, that's called toilet bebezdin. I'm toilet that I'm the best said to do it, I could do it. Says Rabbi Yehuda Yipata. That was the toilet with that. That's atzma. If he does it himself, you're going to go ahead on and you're going to be chayav. That's clearly okay. The pasuk again of chatos, and that this pasuk is crucial. The nefesh achas techta b'shkaga meyama aretz ba'asoisa achas b'mitzvah Hashem ashelos ha'asena v'yashem. So that's the pasuk that you're going to bring a carbon. You're going to bring. That's for a regular Joe. He brings what? He brings a female carbon. He brings either a sheep or a goat, a female. Obviously, the par halam davshel tzibur is a par. And tonight's Gemara is going to tell us that that's not the halacha. That we paskin like the chachamim that a person who's toila bebezdin. If Bezdin paskins that you can eat it, and he goes ahead and eats it, Yechai v'chatas. Now, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty, which is really, this is the part of Horayos that really sets the tone of difficulty. And we're going to get through it, and after that, Horayos is not as difficult. So only a certain part of tonight's share is very difficult. If you heard, and Baruch Hashem, my son Simcha saved the day. Okay, yes.
Today's day and age, right? If a hechsher gives a hechsher in a store to make a mistake, so we would be chayav achatas?
I don't know. Again, no. This is only Bezdin. Yeah, you would be chayav achatas. Yeah, person, you would be. Okay, you would be. Okay. Now I'll tell you why. This is a great kasha. I saw this in the art scroll. Art scroll brings down a Noida Yehuda. Guys, what's the svara of the chachamim? Clearly, if I had a head to eat it. If anything, I'm an honest machmana patre. Honest machmana patre. I'm an honest. Like, what do you expect me to do in Yankel's case, right? You have ashkacha. What do you expect me to do? So he says a very, very, and he brings in, isn't this the same if a man would live with his wife, shaloi b'shas fest, and turns out she, as b'shas tashmish, she's pierced the nida. It's a chiv kares, right? And you would bring a carbon chatas, because good. The answer is no, you don't. That's an honest. So frag the Noid Yehuda, it's in Minyarin Tinyana Tzadik Vav. Minyarin Tinyana Tzadik Vav. What's the difference? Over here you got a psak, who's beheta. Just like there you were living your wife beheta. Over there it's an honest. And over here what it is, it's considered what it's a chatas. What's the difference? So he said, the Noid Yehuda makes a very nice chiluk, and he says the following. Let's say a woman, two Eidim come. They said, your husband died overseas. Your husband died overseas. Can she remarry? Yeah. Of course. What happens if the husband shows up? Does she have to bring a chatas? And the answer is yes. The answer is she has to bring a chatas. So what's the difference? And he says that beautifully. He goes, when a man is with his wife, there was no mistake of him being with his wife. It was shaloi b'shas fest. They were together. There's nothing possibly that you would have to ask a shaila what you could do. In both cases, the case of a woman who remarried, it's based upon a ties. The Edom said he's died, the husband. You needed a heta to enter that situation. Over here, Bezdin Paskin, that chaylev is mutter. So when your actions are based on someone's mistake, that's not an honest. That's a shogeg. That's what the Yehuda says. If your actions is based, guys, it's beautiful. It's based upon someone else allowing you to do it. So that's not considered an honest. An honest would be you're doing something without any preliminary step that you would need to go into it. So you live with your wife. You live with your wife. Mashenkin over here, you need to A, ask Bezdin, B, Adim, then that's the svara of the Chachamim while you chayiv, and you take a chayiv. So in your situation, if you take a 8, you'll be chayiv.
A little different though.
Right? Well, you're eating based upon the mashkiach.
Yeah, but it's a little different because the chesed was that you were allowed to eat kosher. Why should you assume that's not kosher? This is,
Again,
it's honest, I think it's
okay, good. Whatever it is,
Right.
okay. But again, I think the Yehuda is clear the distinction between the two. Okay, tonight's Gemara is going to introduce, guys, the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. So again, Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion, Bezdin Paskin you could. You went ahead and did. Pata. The Chachamim went ahead and said, Yechayev. We're going to bring in a brisa. I hope everyone has, I sent out, you have on your phone. If anybody wants a hard copy, I have a few hard copies. If anyone prefers a hard copy, there's a few hard copies over here. Okay, that you want to see, it might be a little clearer. Okay? Same as 30 years ago. 33 years ago, whatever it was. Okay, good. So we're going to bring in a brisa. The first part of the brisa is going to be Rabbi Yehuda. The second part of the brisa is going to be the Rabbanan. Okay? Okay, you don't have to look at it yet. Rabbi Yehuda says you are pata. Rabbi Yehuda says you're pata. Good?
In all cases.
You're pata, meaning if you're toilet bedas bezdin, you're pata. You're pata. Even if bezdin is not going to bring what? A carbon. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to see it inside. We're not going to understand it. Then we're going to look at the sheet. And then we're going to go back and go inside again. Okay? So let's start. We're starting on Beis Amid Beis. We're starting on Beis Amid Beis. Right after the Suyemai, a few lines down, Rav Yehuda Shmuel. You see the two dots go down 3-4 lines. Rav Yehuda Shmuel, Zu Divrei Rav Yehuda. These words in the Mishnah that toile b'das bezdin, if you're acting upon bezdin, that your pata, that's Rav Yehuda. Al v'chacham maimim yachid sha'asa b'haraz bezdin, a yachid that goes ahead and acts upon the rav bezdin, chayiv, yechayiv. My Rabbi Yehuda, who's the Rabbi Yehuda that says your pata? The Tanya. So what does the pasuk say, guys? It says, Im nefesh achas techta b'shkaga me'am ha'aretz b'asoisa. Says the Chafetz Chaim, it could have said, nefesh, from techta, the word nefesh is extra, b'shkaga me'am ha'aretz b'achas me'mitzvahs. So the word nefesh, the word achas and asoisa are extra. So you have 3 mi'utim. 2 of the mi'utim we don't care about. That's Masechta Shabbos. The one mi'ut we care about is if you do an aveira that Bezdin told you could do, you pata. So that's the mi'ut of the 3 mi'utim of Rebbe, the 3 mi'utim of Rebbe Yehuda. One of the mi'utim we use for that thing that we need. Toilet b'das Bezdin, by Raz Bezdin is pata. Harielu gimel mi'utim. There's nefesh echas b'shkaga. Ha'oisa mi pi atzmai chayiv. But if he goes ahead and acts upon himself, meaning without the Harav Bezdin, you chayiv. By Raz Bezdin pata, Raz Bezdin's pata. Now that's easy. That's easy. The Rabbanon say you chayiv. My Rabbanon, the Tanya. Now we're picking it up in the middle of a conversation. Guys, the word ba'asoisa is mashma one person does it. What happens if 2 people would do it? Let's say 2 people. They do an avera together. How do you know you chayiv? Asois is much the pasuk that says chatas. Guys, remember, guys, remember it's a pasuk that's mechayiv mechatas. Without the pasuk, I'm not chayiv. So if the pasuk says ba'asoisa, it's much for one person. So ba'asoisa is much for 1, right? Me'ama oretz is going to include more. So in the brisa of the chachamim, guys, you have to know 2 things. The miyut is what is asoisa. And the ribuy that includes more is the word me'am oretz. That it didn't have to say. Okay, so now you're talking about a person goes ahead and does an avera. 1-1, no bezdin. We're picking it up where you're saying, how do you know asoisa? How do you know asoisa means more than 1? In other words, if you look at Rashi, on the left side, fellas. The left side, the I don't know. It's let me. You see in the Gemara, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. About 13 lines in the Gemara parallel to that. V'adayin ani omer. V'adayin ani omer. Reisha de maslisan hachi yisa b'teres kahanim. Now this doesn't appear in our Gemara. Ba'asaisa yachid shasa chayiv. I would say asaisa, one individual who does an avera b'shogeg is chayiv. Shnayim shasu p'turim, but two people would be pata because asaisa is mashma one. Tamid laima. Therefore, we have the pasuk me'ama oretz. Afil mirubim. Even if more, rubim just means roy. Rubim means even more than one. Now, this is where we pick it up, and this is where we're picking it up over here. Now, so back in the Gemara, va'adayin ani omer. Miyut kahal shechatu chayavim. I would say, you know what? If a minority, more than one, does an avera, yichayev. She'ein bezdin mevivin al deim par. You know why yichayev? Because bezdin does not bring a par. Kahal shechatu yiyu peturim. I would say roiv kahal, that is, you put them. Sorry, bezdin mevivin al deim par. Okay, let's look at the sheet now. Let's go look at the sheet. It's a brachal vatala to do this inside. Look at the sheet. Just look at it's a bracha vatala. You wanted to, Rabbi, you can't possibly understand what I said.
No, but I see just on the pasuk, and I'm trying to understand the pasuk. It says nefesh achas. So isn't that itself mashma one, not more than one?
Yeah. So it also says in the pasuk me'amaretz. In other words, asaisa would be mashma one. But Amma Oretz includes more than one. You're right. You're exactly right. So therefore, I needed Amma Oretz to include more. Now, guys, take a look at the first on the right side. Okay, it says, here's what the Brisa says. Mi'et kahal shechatu is chayev. Right, that's Lashon. Meaning, if Bishoy gave, no bezdin involved whatsoever, correct? Does it? So in other words, let's say 10 people. That's a mir of a kahal, do an aveira, be chayiv, a chayiv a korban chatas. She'ein bezdin mevim al yedei par. You know why? Because since they're a minority, bezdin doesn't mean a par. Now, however, if roiv kahal shechatu, I would say if the majority of Klal Yisrael does an aveira, then you be pata. You know why? Because bezdin brings a korban. Now, guys, I got a problem. When it says Bezdin brings a korban, it must be speaking about the Bezdin Paskin, correct? Mm-hmm. But what's the pasuk Basais is speaking about? Where Bezdin did Paskin. It's speaking about Shignas Maisa. In other words, you have a stira mineu bay in the Brisa. Is it speaking about doing an Aveira without Bezdin, or it's doing an Aveira based upon Psak Bezdin? So you look at the words, guys, right in front of you, that first box is a stira. The first line, Miyat Kahal Shechatu Chayiv Shein Bezdin Chayiv, I wrote, that's if you do it Shiggas Maisa, going across, right? You hear that? Now, however, then in the same breath, what does it say? Roiv Kahal Shechatu Yepeturim, you know why? Because Bezdin brings what? So that's mashma, you're bringing a korban. Why? They're bringing a korban because they paskin. So this words of the Brisa, guys, are a stira. That whole box is one stira. You got it? Beautiful. It's one stira. Now, therefore, it must be talking by Hayra, because it says Bezdin going down. It now past the box going down. Comes along me'ama oretz afilu roiv or kuloi. They still bring a korban. Good. So here's the problem. The question: this pasuk is ama oretz is speaking b'shigig esmaisa. So how can you tell me that what is the din of Hayra? So memela, this is the stira. Therefore, we're going to have to divide it up. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. Ready? Okay, guys, we're making a two-sided things. One, miyat kahal shechatu chayiv. I'm on the right side where it says, therefore, let's divide. I'm all the way on the side there. Okay, Shiggas Maisa was cut off, so I put it on top. Shiggas Maisa is speaking a miyat kahal shechatu chayiv. A miyat, I would say a miyat kahal that does, so 10 people do without b'shoigig, without bezdin, yichayiv. You know why yichayiv? Since in the case of hayra, you would be chayiv, over here yichayiv too. In other words, me at this part, I'm doing a case of Shigas Maisa, but the corollary is since that's why I put in parentheses. Since in the case of Hayra, I be chayiv, here I'm chayiv too. Since in the case of Hayra, I be chayiv, I'm chayiv by Shigas Maisa. So 10 people do it. If 10 people did it a psak best, then they be chayiv, so they chayiv over here also. So what do you see? I read over here. But in case of Ayra, that Bezdin would not bring a carbon, the Yechidim would still be chayiv achatas. This is the shita of the Chachamim. There it is. This is the shita. This is the shita of the Chachamim. Right? Since Bezdin is not bringing a carbon, whether it's Shigas Maisa or Hira, you're going to be chayiv. This is the svar of the Chachamim. And that's what we need. That's what we need.
This is talking about when not the Rove does it, right?
What? Not the Rove.
But the Rove does
Not-
it according to
not the-
Rabbi,
not the
you
Rove.
would bring it,
Not the Rove, right? Not the Rove, not the Rove. Now we're going to see the next case. So again, here's what we're doing, fellas. Here's what we did. Guys, what do we accomplish here? What do we accomplish here? We had a steer in a brisa. Is it speaking about Shigas Maisa? It's speaking about Hira. So what we did was we made a hybrid. We went ahead and said the din of Shigas Maisa, we can extrapolate from the din of Hira. Since by Shigas Maisa, you know you're chayiv? Because Hira, you'd also be chayiv. And that's your raya, that guys that what the Yachid who does it by Hira is chayiv. And that's the Shitas Chachamim. Now, the Bryce's next case, but if Roiv Kahal does it, I think you're pata. Why do you think, guys? So if, let's say it's 100,000 people. So let's say 70,000 people, Shigas Maisa, 70,000 people decide to eat chaylev. I would think you're pata. You know why you're pata? Because in that case, Bezdin, it was Raz Bezdin, they would bring the carbon. So in other words, we're comparing Shigas Maisa to Hayra. So, Kemash Malon me Ama Aretz. That no, even though Bir Hayra you'd be pata from the carbon because Bezdin's bringing it, but Shigas Maisa you'd be chayiv. Even though it's a roiv. But Shigas Maisa be roiv. Okay? So that's the brisa that tells us, guys. That's the brisa that tells us the shitas chachamim. Now let's see it inside. Let's see if there's anybody want a hard copy. Hard copy. There you go. Okay, now let's see it inside. Okay, so now we're looking at the chachamim. Let's do it one more time. I'll read it together. Adayin ani oimer. Adayin ani oimer is after I already figured out that two is chayiv. Of course, it says me'amoretz. Kahal shechatu chayavim she'ein bezdin mevin al ideim par. A kahal that does it what chayiv bezdin doesn't bring a par. Now it must be speaking what that must be they got a psak bezdin, or else why are you putting bezdin in here at all? Roif kahal shechatu yepeturim shei bezdin mevin al ideim par. Tamalon me'amoretz. I feel a ruba, I feel a kula. B'mai. What's the case of your brisa? If you're telling me that you acted upon yourself, Bezdin ma'aviditaya. What's Bezdin? Right, Bezdin. You did it yourself. There's no Bezdin's not involved at all. Shaloi bara's Bezdin. Me maisi. Shaloi bara. Ella must be speaking, fellas. B'hoira. Now it's speaking b'hoira. Kikasiv me'am aretz b'shkagin ma'isudiksiv. Okay, that was the box, right? That was the stira. And now, so what do? We combine the two. Elo lav hochi kamar. Here's what you learn pshat, guys. Mi'it kahal shechatu b'shigas maisa. 10 people went ahead and ate chaylev on their own druthers. Chayavim. You know where the chayiv? Now, guys, you're telling yourself, of course you're chayiv. No, because the Torah says ba'asaisa. Again, you're only chayiv achatas because the Torah tells you chayiv achatas. And if the Torah tells me ba'asaisa, speaking about one person, I would think you're not chayiv. So now why are you chayiv? You know why you're chayiv? In the same scenario, Bahayra, Bezdin wouldn't bring the carbon. Therefore, in that scenario, you're going to bring the carbon. Hahain, but what? The Hahain chayavim. Vashain came what? If it's a single individual, you're going to be chayiv. Afilu Bahayra. And that's the Shitas Chachamim. This is the second part. I might think of Roiv the Kahal. 70,000 people eat chaylev b'shigas maisa. Yeah, I would say you pata. You know why? Shari Besdin may be in a laying par by raw. Because in the same scenario, by raw, Besdin would go ahead and bring a carbon. Because it's by the Chayisrael. Tamid Laimar may ama aretz. I feel a rubai even rive. Yeah, ama aretz is going to be chay b'shigdas ma'isa, even though Besdin would bring a carbon. Guys, how is that? Here's the hard part.
Mhm.
Ich habe nicht verstanden, Pashup Shah. I could not make heads or tails out of this. Okay, so hang in there. If you don't understand it, you're in good company. Okay, hang in. But I think I have it. Okay, so guys, so watch. The key nakuda over here is that this line, but in the case of Hayra, the Yechidim would still be chayiv v'chatas. Good, guys. You see that line there? Right, the line going across, the straight line in the Resha, the straight line going across. Rav Papa is going to ask the following. Rav Papa is going to ask, why do you assume that they chayiv? I can just assume they're pata. Bezdin's pata, and they're pata. In other words, since they acted they're at Sibur, they're at Siba, and that's a single guy. They acted behoira. So just like Bezdin with pata because it's less than mat than a roiv, so he's also pata. So in other words, says Rav Papa, what's your raya to the Shitas Chachamim that a yochid who eats it behoira's Bezdin is chayiv? What's your raya? I could just as easily say, not only is Bezdin pata, you're also pata. Good. Fred the Gemara, Amra Papa, Mimai, how do you know it's speaking that the yochid that does it is pata? Chayiv, Dil Maloi Hein V'loi Bezdin. The yochid is pata, you know why? Because he acted on das Bezdin. He acted, it should not shiggus my, it's he acted on Horayos Bezdin. And the Bezdin's pata because it's not right the cow. So maybe that's pshat. Okay, so here's where it gets dicey. Ihachi, if that's the pshat, my area the kamahadle ruba lechiyuva, lav mechal de miuta b'hira, kaimala de mechayava b'hira. Guys, look at the chart. Roif kahal shechatu ye peturim. Bezdin mevin al yedei par, right? Kamash malon. Okay, that was the. Now, when you went ahead to be marber the chiyuv on the kahal, it must be took for granted that the yachid is chayiv, because it's not. You could have been marber the yachid. In other words, why jump to second base? You only go to second base because first base is full. Says the Gemara on Rav Papa. If it's like you are saying it's true, Rav Papa, that yechidim are pata, why did the Brisa jump to go ahead and say only the kahal should be pata, roiv should be pata? According to you, you should ask the kasha on the yachid. The fact that you guys are here, why nothing here? Why are you jumping to this? In other words, this line, guys, look at the chart where it says roiv kahal shechatu ye peturin. Why did you jump to that? It must be that because the yachid is chayiv. Because if the yachid is pata, you should say deal with the yachid now. Good, deal with the yachid now. So this is the upslug, guys. That's the upslug on what? On Rav Papa. That's what Rav Papa wanted to say. They're both pata, side the yachid, side the kal. No, maybe the kal's pata and the yachid's chayiv. They're both pata. Says no. If that's the case, and here's the key. When the Gemara, the Brisa went ahead and wanted to find the chiyuv first, that I would think the roiv kal is pata. Tamalayim ma'ama aretz. It should have said I would think if the yachid's pata, I would go ahead and say tamalayim he's chayiv. Ella, when we jump to the kal, it must be because we know as a dava pashit that you are chayiv. Now this is the words. The Gemara now is extra words, and what the Gemara is doing now is answering Rav Papa to his words. So we upslug Rav Papa, and now we're answering Rav Papa, and then we're going to have an easier share. And after that, everything is going to go geshmir. Okay, so says the Gemara. So Nachamo says Rav Papa, how do you know it's chayiv? Maybe they're both pata. See, hachi, my area the kamhadal ruba lechiyuva. Why did it in the second clause? Go ahead and have to be marba the roiv. Lav mechal de miuta b'ira kayam Allah de mechayva b'ira. It must be chayiv, or else you would have gone ahead and shtalsach on the yachid. So now the Gemara is saying ela l'didach. If you put in the words over here, ela l'didach, according to you, Rav Papa, nahada b'reisha al miuta the mechayev b'shrigas ma'isa. First, what should you go? You should go ahead and include the yachid. Because you're pata, so first we should use ma'ama aretz to include that. And then go ahead and include that. Elalav midaloi mahadal miut the mechayeves b'shrigas ma'isa ubesoif mahadal ruba l'chiyuva b'shrigas ma'isa shma mina miut b'hayra chayavim hein kispa useira ushalei b'hayra b'shrigas ma'isa chayavim. Okay, that's the hard part of the Gemara. Okay, I think it's Geshmak. That's good. I think it's Geshmak. You know, good. A good chart is I tell you, it just keeps on going. Right. Oh. Sure. Okay. According to Rav Papa, he says you should by Hayra also. You could say it's Pata. You have no right chayev. The Gemara then says if that's the case, then the Brisa is neming on something as a Dava Pashit. It's neming on that the Yachid is chayev because it jumps and says to go ahead and shells on the Roiv. Why would you jump to the Kahal? Why would you jump to the Roiv, Reb David? If the assumption is I'm trying to include the Roiv to be chayev. If the Yachid was Pata, I should shtell sich and first be mechayev the Yachid before the Rabbim. Ella, when you jump to the Rabbim to be mechayev the Rabbim, it must be take as a Dava Pashit that the Yachid is chayev as well. So when you jump to the Rabbim is a raya that the Yachid is chayev. That's the Upshag on Rav Papa who said the Yachid is Pata. Good? Okay, it gets much easier. Michdi. Shavayu Sasmi. These prices that we just mentioned, they're very sussum. They're very, very, very sussum. Tanan. Mimai dekaima kamaisa Rav Yehuda basrais Rabbanon. Why do you hold the three miyutim? Right? We had nefesh achas techta. The three miyutim are Rav Yehuda, and basrais and the latter one's Rabbanon. Eme ipcha. You know, it's guys. They're both stam prices. You didn't see the word Rabbi Yehuda. You didn't see the word Chachamim. Why do you assume? I could just as easily assume the Chachamim say you're Potter, and Rabbi Yehuda says Yechayev. So the Gemara is going to prove that it must be Rabbi Yehuda. It says, Man Shamelo de Dorish Miute, Ki Gavna. Who says the Darshan three Miutim? We had Nefesh Techas, that right? Ki Gavna, Rabbi Yehuda. It's Rabbi Yehuda. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Oimer. Rabbi Yehuda says, Zois Toiras Ha'oila. Now the pasuk says the Zois Toiras Ha'oila, and we say Zois is a miyut. Ha'oila the hay and oila is a miyut, and he's a miyut. Harayos shlosh miyutim. So stylistically, here we have Rabbi Yehuda doing the three miyutim. So the assumption is that the three miyutim nefesh tachas v'asaisa also what is Rabbi Yehuda. V'bo yasema adayin ani oimer loy matzis mukmas lak Rabbi Yehuda. I can tell you it's taka not Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, the meaning not the first brisa, guys, the second brisa. Okay, in other words, the second brisa can't be like Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Take a look at the second brisa. You have to go back in time. If you don't want to go back, just listen to the words I'm going to read to you. Guys, what's the words of the second brisa? Who's bringing the par? She'ein bezdin mevin. It's mashma from those words. Bezdin brings it. Guys, Rabbi Yehuda says that Siba brings it. Rabbi Yehuda seems that Siba brings it. So not only stylistically is it Rabbi Yehuda, but from the Brisa itself, it can't be Rabbi Yehuda. Because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold the Bezdin brings it. Bezdin is the mechanism of Mechayev me. But you know who brings it? That Siba brings it. So in Mela, when it says that Bezdin brings it, obviously it can't be Rabbi Yehuda. That's the second thing. Viba Yisema, it can't be Rabbi Yehuda. You know why? For the following reason. Adayin ani oimer, leimatzis muchzak Rabbi Yehuda. The Tani, roiv kahal shechatu, Bezdin mevin al yedei par. Vi Rabbi Yehuda ha'amat siba hu demaisi. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, that siba goes ahead and brings it, and not the Bezdin. So in Melawad, it can't be. Tidnan Rabbi Yehuda vi Rabbi Yehuda ha'amat siba hu demaisi. Bezdin light Tidnan, and Bezdin doesn't bring it. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer Shiva Shvatim Shechatu. That's a roiv of Shvatim, guys. Right, 7 is roiv of 12. Mevi'in Zayin Purim. So what do you see? Who's bringing it? The Shvatim are bringing it. So you see that there's only one Bezdin. Bezdin 71. There's only one Bezdin, but when you see 7 Shvatim, that's the majority of Klal Yisrael in the Shvatim, right? They're bringing it. So what do you see? Obviously, it must be that he holds that the Tzibah brings it. So Mamela, it's Rabbi. You want to know which is Rabbi Yehuda, which is the Chum, even though it was anonymous. It's mashmitz Rabbi Yehuda simply for two reasons. One, stylistically, because of the three miutim, and secondly, because it says in the Brisa of the Rabbanan said Bezdin's going to bring it. Rabbi Yehuda's of the opinion that what that the Kal brings it. Rav Nachman and Shmuel Zuda Reb Meir. These are the words of Reb Meir. Okay, the words Reb Meir is the one who says that you pata, but a yachid who does by Ras Bezdin is chayiv. My Reb Meir, my Rabbanan. Okay, so who is Reb Meir? Who's the Rabbanan? My Rabbanan Titania. Hayra Bezdin Paskins v'asu, and they go ahead and do it. Okay, so who paskin and who did? Who paskin and who did? Reb Meir poitiv v'chachamim chayavim. Man asu, who exactly did this? Elaim Bezdin, if Bezdin did it, my time of the Rabbanan the Mechayva. But Tanya, Yachal Hoyra Bezdin v'yasu Bezdin Yachal Yechayavim Tamaloima Hakahal v'asu. Maisa Tali b'Kahal v'Hoyra Tali b'Bezdin. In other words, fellas, if you're going to say Hoyru Bezdin Paskin v'yasu and Bezdin did it, they're not going to bring it. In order to bring the par, it has to be the Kahal acts upon the acts, not ask. Acts upon what? Bezdin. But not that Bezdin, Paskins and Bezdin does it. So it can't be that. Ella must be Hoyra Bezdin, Bezdin Paskin, V'yasu Roiva Kahal, and Reb Meir says, right, my time the Reb Meir depata, Elalav, Hoyru Bezdin, V'yasu Miyat Kahal. Ubaha Pligi. Masav Yachid Shasu Bayras Bezdin Pata, Masav Yachid Shasu Bayras Bezdin Chayiv. Okay, so look at your chart. This is the first of 6 different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 5. Okay, now I'm going to have to do a little. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, turn it. Okay, here. So the first case, guys, on the right axis, you have going across. Hoyra of Asu Reb Meir Pata and Rabbanan Chayiv. The Havamina is that Bezdin gave the Pesak and Bezdin acted upon the Pesak. So if they now, why would the Rabbanan hold you bring a par? They won't be, because if Bezdin does it, you don't. So it must be that Bezdin paskind and the Kahal did it. So why would Rameya hold that you pata from a par? Well, it must be that what? Go to the next column. It must be holds potter al yachid she'asav aras Bezdin. When it says hoyru, guys, the word hoyru means Bezdin paskin. The asu, who's the asu? When it says second teretz, guys, the asu is mira kahal. You see the words over there? The asu mira kahal. So ain Bezdin, Bezdin doesn't bring it. Good, and therefore, and Rabbanan say chayiv. Yeah, you got it. So in other words, let's say that it wasn't Rabbi Yehuda who said it; it's Rabbi Meir who said it. This din that we said that a yachid that acts upon Bezdin, is chayiv, is the chachamim, and the Gemara says pat is Rabbi Meir. So the Gemara says you have no raya. Okay, now let's do it. We'll do the chart and then we'll do it inside. The Papa is of the opinion kuliyama pata yachid shasa bayra. In other words, I have another way of explaining this brisa, guys. I can explain this brisa, and everyone holds that a yachid who does upon das bezdin is pata. What's the machloikas then? Whether bezdin is mashlim l'roiv tzibur. Let's say without bezdin you don't have a roiv tzibur, but with bezdin you'd have roiv tzibur and you bring the par helam dava. Is bezdin what? So therefore, when it says hoyra bezdin pasim va'asu, are they mashlim? According to Reb Meir, bezdin's not mashlim. Since bezdin's not mashlim, you plutter from the carbon helam dava because you don't have a roiv. Like the Rabbanon, bezdin is mashlim. Bezdin does go ahead and make it a roiv, and since bezdin makes it a roiv, yichayev. So in other words, I have another way of explaining the machloikis over here that has nothing to do with yachid paskining and acting upon bezdin. Guys, you good? Okay. A third shot, third teretz. Everyone holds haru bezdin v'yasu ruba shel kahal, right? So again, so what happened? You put the mechanism in place. Bezdin paskin and roiva the kahal acted upon that psak. So why you pata? Since bezdin brings a par, that tzib is pata from a par. When Meir says you pata, it means that bezdin brings it, and according to the Chachamim hold like Rav Shimon, that what? That the Tzibur and Bezdin bring a par helam dava. So when it says Yechayev, it means that Tzibur is Chayev. Again, Does only Bezdin bring a par? Or there's opinion that not only does Bezdin bring it, but what? Tzibur brings it also. So one who says Yipata, the one who says Yipata, it means the Tzibur's Pata. You know why it's Tzibur's Pata? Because Bezdin's bringing it. And the one who says Yechayev, that's of Shimon, Yechayev, why? In conjunction with the, but not that what? That a Yochid who acts upon Bezdin is going to be what? Okay. A fourth teretz, a Shevet is Pata from being a par. Rabbi Yehuda says a shevet she'asa baras bezdin is called kahal and chayiv to bring a par. Fellas, a kahal brings a par. When we said kahal, we assumed it's a majority of people. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that even if one shevet acts upon bezdin, even if they're a minority, you're going to bring the par because they consider kahal. So the Reb Meir says Yipata. He disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda. He says that what? No, you need a majority of a shevet. Not going to do it. Mashenkin, when it says chayiv, it's Rabbi Yehuda who says a shevet that goes ahead. But Raz Bezdin is called kahal and chayiv to bring a par. You didn't get that one? Again, we go ahead and assume that when it says roiv, it means a number of people. But called kahal Yisrael. Kahal, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that each shevet is its own kahal. We saw it above. 7 shvatim, 7 paros. Each one's going to bring. Why? Because each one zichalein is the kahal. So how do you explain the machlokes over here? Beautiful. The Rebbe Meir says you pata. If one shevet does it, that's not a kahal. Therefore you pata. On the other hand, the Rabbanan says you chayiv because they hold like the shittas Rebbe Yehuda. That's one shevet does it, you're going to be chayiv. Finally, fifth teretz, 6 shvatim. But the roiv of the tzibur, or 7 shvatim, even not roiv. So, guys, you go ahead, take an electoral vote, electoral college. You have small states and big states. So you have 6 shvatim, and these 6 shvatim, California, Texas, these are roiv. They're roiv. You have 7 shvatim, New Hampshire, Delaware, and they're not. Right? They're not. So, says Rameya, Bezdin's pata, since it's not considered roiv kahal. Bezdin's pata, why? Roiv, you need 2. You need shvatim and you need kahal. And Rav Shimon Elazar says you chayiv as long as you have roiv, either in the kahal or in the shevet. So those are 4 other different ways of explaining the machlokes, and it has nothing to do with what where Yochid goes ahead and acts on Bezdin. Okay, let's see it inside. Right? Original question was we said it is answered. It's that what Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim. We asked how you know it's Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim. We said it's got to be Rabbi Yehuda.
The second one was that you want to prove that it's the second price. It can't be the Chacham. Can't be
Rabbi Yehuda. We did prove it because Rabbi Yehuda says that what that Rabbi Yehuda says that the carbon is bought by the tzibur, and that clearly said it's bought by Bezdin. So we proved that it could be Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, very good shmak. Okay, so let's see inside. All these. Amra Papa, says our Papa. We'll pick it up over there. The Kuli Alma Yachid Shasa Barais Bezdin is Pata. Ella Bezdin Mashlam L'Roiv Tzibur Kamifliki. Masavar Bezdin Mashlam L'Roiv Tzibur. Bezdin is Mashlam L'Roiv Tzibur. That's the Chachamim. Therefore you Chayev. Therefore you Pata. Masav that was Reb Meir. Masav ain't Bezdin Mashlam L'Roiv Tzibur, and therefore what you Chayev to bring up. No, Pata would mean okay. If you say it's going on Bezdin, then if you say it's going on Bezdin. Then what? Ain't Bezdin Mashlim Mitzibur, Bezdin Mashlim Mitzibur. So then, according to Rabbanon, if they're Mashlim Mitzibur, they'd be Chayiv a carbon, and according to Reb Meir, be Pata. Everybody say, Mahoru Bezdin Vasu Reb Shechal, Uman Chacham, and Reb Shimon, Damar Tzibur Maisa, Bezdin Maisa. They both bring. So therefore, the Chayiv means it's going on the Tzibur, and Reb Meir, it's going, the Patur is going on the Tzibur, they're Pata. Everybody say, Shevet Shasa Baraz Bezdin, Uman Chacham, Reb Yehudi, the Tanya. Shevet Shasa Baraz Bezdin, based in Oisa Shevet Chayev. That's Shevet's Chayev. Mashen Kain Reb Meir would hold that Shevet's Pata. By saying it going Shechotu Shisha, the Heim Ruba Shal Kahal, 6 Shvatim, but they're the majority of the people. Oy Shiva Afal B'Shein Ruba Shal Kahal. Umaslisim money is Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The time of Shimon ben Elazar Omer Mishma Chatu Shisha, the Heim Ruba Shal Kahal. Oy Shiva Afal B'Shein Ruba Shal Kahal Chayavim. that you'll be chayiv. According to Rav Shimon, as long as you have either one, you'll be chayiv. And Rabbi says no, you'll be potter. Okay, fighter. Okay, you can put away your charts for another 7.5 years. So as long as
Put the new date on it.
Huh?
Put the new date on it.
Benji writes the date when it was used last. Right? It's part of Daf Law, and now we can make it into the blog, which is even more chashiv. Okay, now, Amar Avasi, Ubayro Holachacha Roiv Yoshvei Eretz Yisrael. When it says Hayra, let's say in Chutz La'aretz, they don't come into the cheshbon. The cheshbon in Eretz Yisrael. Shneimar B'yash Shlomo Be'esahi Esachag B'Chol Yisrael Imoi Kahal Gadol Milavoi from approaching. Chamos is a place Anach Mitzrayim L'fnei Hashem Elokeinu Shivas Yomim V'Shivas Yomim Arba Asa Yom Michtek. It says V'Chol Yisrael Amoi Kahal Gadol and Milavoi Ad Chamas Nacham Mitzrayim. Lamali, why do you have to say that? What? Once you told me that Chol Yisrael Amoi, why do you tell me Kahal Gadol? Shma Mina Hanihu Deikri Kahal. Dafka in Chamas going to Mitzrayim, which is the border of Eretz Yisrael, is considered Kahal. Aval Hanich Lo Yikri Kahal, but Chutz La'aretz it's not considered a Kahal. Okay, let's look at a Mishnah and Daf Yud. Mishnah and Daf Yud. Huh?
So we gotta go for drinks after this one.
Yeah.
Every night.
What time is it?
Every night.
Oh, it's always time for drinks.
Right? It's already time. You know what? I'll bring in some wine. Okay. Anyway, Chatu Achlei Nismanu, Yakach Nismanu. So you have what a kohen Mashiach, guys. A kohen gadol brings a power. A nasi brings a carbon, right? He brings the melech brings a seir. So when they did the chait, they were yechidim. So they usually bring female sheep or goats. V'yakach nismanu, and then they were appointed. Hari elu kihed yoitis. We'll consider them like regular Joes. Now, as we go after the time of the chait, so they're going to bring a regular kispa or sira. Reb Shimon Omer, im noidalahem achloi nismanu, if it became known to them until they were appointed chayovim, umish nismanu peturim. However, when they're nismanu, then they be pata. So pashtus Rabbi Shimon, we want to say you go after when they find out, but be aware. Look, if they find out afterwards, they're pata. He has to find out in the time he did the chait. Okay, so with that in mind, let's see what we got. Men chachamim go after the chait. Rabbi Yehuda seems to go. Rabbi Shimon goes after Yediyah. Now pshita merubim v'nismatu, if they were a roiv, and then they became less. Hainu plukted Rav Shimon v'Rabbanon. So like the Rabbanon fellas, since what? Since at the time the chait they were a roiv, so that Bezdin is going to be in the Helam Davar, or they'd be pata because Bezdin is going to be in Bezdin, or whoever you hold is going to be in the Helam Davar, and Rav Shimon would say you go after the Yediyah. Mu'atim in Israbu Mai. What about if they were not? In other words, Mu'atim, and then more people did it. So they found that they did it wrong, and then more people did it. Mai. Me pliga Rav Shimon Rabbanon. The Rav Shimon Rabbanon argue over here. Rav Shimon does the basi Yediyah mechayev. Maybe you go after Yediyah. So right now I found out, right? Rabbanon the the basa chatas patri, because since at the time of the chait, right, you were a miyat, so they're gonna be pata. But according to Rav Shimon, you go after Yediyah. But the Gemara looks up, guys. Rav Shimon needed Yediyah at the time of the chait. He needed Yediyah if you found out when you did the chait. If you found out after you did the chait, you pata. So it's not a good sushtel. Says the Gemara, Mai, B'tizbra, aim with the Shamalei Rav Shimon the Ozil, Af Basi Yediyah, Heichi Dahavi Yediyah V'chatas B'chiyov. The Yediyah was that he knew that he did it when he was a single Joe. But Yediyah D'Loichet, if he finds out with Yochet, so here, there was Yediyah without Chet because they were a Miyot, Mishamalei, you didn't hear he say that, then Cain, Leisiki Hashta. Then you should go ahead, what? And bring right now. You should bring a special carbon now. Yet Rav Shimon is not sure if he brings kihashta. Only that he doesn't bring a regular chatas. But the Mechai, not. El Rav Shimon chatas v'yediyah boy. You need both. Iboilu. Hoyra bezdin chaylev mutta. V'yasu miyir akahal. The chazru, and then bezdin they realized they made a mistake. However, they were having a bad day, and v'chazu bezdin v'hen v'chayra v'asu miyut acher. In other words, they did it again. So they passed in chaylev, then they stopped, and they passed in chaylev again. Mao. And now you have the combination, you have a roiv. Now you have a roiv combination. Kivin the shtei have a mitzarif, miyut, kivin the shtei yediyas ninu loy mitzarif, since it's two yediyas, two separate yediyas, because they knew in between, it's not mitzarif. I deal with kivin the idividi chaylev, who since it's what, it's chaylev mitzarif. Vim tim tzulema kivin the idividi chaylev who mitzarif, miyut b'chaylev shel gabi hakevo, umiyut b'chaylev shel gabi dakin, two different locations of chaylev. Mahu. Hachavada kivin the betray kroy kasi. There's two separate psukim like mitzarif. I tell him kivin the idividi chaylev who since it's all chaylev mitzarif. Vim tim tzulema shem chaylev who mitzarif miyut b'chaylev umiyut b'dam mahu. They paskin that dam is chaylev is mutter, then they paskin dam is mutter. Well, you're going to go ahead and combine the two. Hachavada the tray suri ninu the kivin they nisa shavu like mitzarif. I dilma kivin the carbon shavin since they're equal, they both mean the same carbon mitzarif. Dimtim Tzalaima keeping the carbon shavim mitzaref miyat bechelev miyat ba'avodas kechavim, which is different karbanis. Guys, by a chelev you can bring a seiro or a kispa. By avodas kechavim you have to bring a seiro. By avodas kechavim you have to bring a seiro. Mahu. Hachavadai any surah shavim ain't carbon shavim. This is not equal because one's chelev and one's avodas zara, and the carbon's not equal because one's kispa v'seira, one's seira. I deal with keeping the idividi karasu mitzaref, and the Gemara answers teku. Iboilahu. Hayra bezdin shechelev muta. Bezdin paskins that what? The chaylev is mutter. The asu mir kahal, and comes along the mir kahal goes ahead what? And acts upon that. So umeis oisei bezdin. That bezdin dies. The omi bezdin acher v'chazu v'horu, and then they paskin v'asu mir acher alibad. Okay. Bezdin paskin chaylev is mutter. Bezdin dies. A miyat of Klal Yisrael 8. A new business in this manner. They paskin based that chaylev is mutter. Another miyat eats, and now you have two miyutim. You have a roiv. You have a roiv now. Do you bring the carbon or not? No, same thing. They're both chaylev. They both paskin the same stake. They both paskin the chaylev is mutter, but it's two different batei. So now what's the shaila? Right. I'll leave it man the yama best in Maisi. That bezdin brings the loyti boilach the lesnahu because you don't have the same bezdin. Al kiti boilach I'll leave it man the yama tziba Maisi that the tziba brings it. My tziba hakoi, right? The tziba is still around, and therefore they would bring it because it's a majority. Idilma yidia the who bezdin the idea of the bezdin that paskin the hayra beinin, and you don't have that. It says more teku, it pipes teku. Rabbi Yonason. 10 people sit down to paskin. Ein chayav mat sheyoru kulan. They're not chayiv until all of them paskin. Shneimar then kol adas Yisrael, adas is Sanhedrin yisku. If all that's the pasuk by. In other words, you need all 71 members of the best in the paskin. Then kol adas Yisrael yisku. Ad she yisku kulan till they all make a mistake. Ad she tishbay hara b'chol das Yisrael. Until it goes out to all of Klal Yisrael. Amrafuna, braid of Oishia, Hachanami Mistabra, the Bechal Torah Kula Kaimalan, Ruba Kakulai. The whole Torah we pass in Roiv Kakulai. Vahacha Ksiv Kala Eda. Right? So why does it say Kala Eda? So you need all of them. Hoyel Bakach, Afilu Meya Tanan. Haru Bezdin, Vyoda Echamehem Shato. This is that we had in our Mishnah, the second case. That Bezdin Paskins, and one of the members know they made a mistake. I Talmud Roy Leira, or Talmud Roy Leira knows. V'holach v'asal pihem, and he goes ahead and he acts upon them. Ben she'asu v'asu imahem, whether they bezdin act with him, like ben she'asu v'asu achreim, or what they right after him. Uben shle'asu v'asu, they don't do it at all. Harzeh chayiv mifnei shle'tala bebezdin. Says the Gemara, hayu dechayiv ha'achapata v'mai ha'ligm ra'hira. Right, the chayra guys, why is he chayiv? You didn't obviously this. One member of Bezdin didn't agree. He knew. If you need a total agreement, how can you have this one guy who knew our Mishnah? And he knew. So how could you say that what you need all when you see that one of them certainly disagreed? Okay? And for the Gemara, Hachamayaskinon, Kigoin Shehirchin Hahu. The guy went ahead and he said, yeah, he gave him this, right? He nodded his head. Rashi in other words, he knew it was wrong, but he went like this. He didn't say anything. He went like this, and therefore the Gemara din was on all of them. Okay. Same. What?
By nodding his head, he knew it was wrong, right?
Again, the shaila is that you needed the Gemara din based upon agreement of all of them. They assumed his nodding their head was agreement. He was agreeing with them. Again, he thought that's a mitzvah to listen to them. I don't know. Tashma. Hoyre bezdin, v'yoda echmehem sheto. V'amalehem toyimatem. You made a mistake. Harei lepeturim. Time adamalehem toyinatem de peturim. Hashasik, if he's quiet, mishtak chayavim. V'gom lo'ira. V'amai. V'aloi hoyru kulon. He didn't give a psak. The reason why it's pata is because he verbally went against them. What happens if you didn't verbally go against them? Then you'd be chayiv. Why is he chayiv? I disagree with that. You didn't get a consensus of Hira. He went ahead and he nodded his head. Right, speaking over here where he nodded his head. Masir Rav Mishashia, Samchu Rav Asein al Divrei B'Shem Gamliel, Val Divrei Velazar et Tzadik, Shay Oimrim, Ein Goysim Gezerah Let Tzibur El Mkein Revet Tzibur Yichel Lamed Ba. You're not going to make a Gezerah on a Tzibur unless the Tzibur is able to go ahead and be makabelit. What's the pasuk? The pasuk says, "Ba'me'era atem ne'orim." You're cursed with a curse. The oisi atem koivim hagoy kula. Yet you rob me, even the whole nation. Ovahacha dechsiv hagoy kula, v'ruba kikula dami, and roiv is like right, is like everything. So the chayra, why it's shver that you need everyone to agree. Tiyufta, Rabbi Yonason Tiyufta. Okay, who's the Baal Memra? Guys, go to the top of the page, 2 lines down. Rabbi Yonason, Meya, Sheyashvu L'Hayros. So you see that what? That Ruba, you only need Roiv. You don't need everybody. Said Gemara, I L'Chari bought a Raya Kol Adas, need everybody. Ve'elamai Kol Adas to come Rachmana, Hachi Kamar. I'ika Kulam, if you have everyone there, Have'ara. Not that they have to agree, but you need every member present. V'loi Loi Have'ara. Guys, you need, but not they have to agree, but Kol Adas, they have to be there. The 71 have to be there. Amir Rishua, Yud Sheyoshvim B'din, Koila Toila B'tzavar, Kulan. 10 people who are sitting in din, you got literally a collar around the neck. In other words, each person has got a big achrayas over here. Pshita, Hakamashwan, that filu Talmud Mefei Rabbi, even a Talmud Mefei Rabbi, that if he's going to listen in front of Bezdin, he also, there's a coil around his neck to go ahead if something went wrong, to open his mouth and say something. Rav Huna ki arinafik le beidina, ma'asi asara tanoi, he would bring 10 fellas, the Beirav, the Kamei, ki hecha, the Nimtim Shiva Bikshura. You know why? He would bring in front of him, he'd bring a bunch of guys, because they make a mistake, he's going to go ahead and pass around the Chiyav, it won't be totally on him. Right. So by passing it around, a lot of people are sharing in the. Okay. Ravashi ki avi maisi tapato lekamei. Ravasi, when they would bring a treif in front of him, maisi asar tafti mimas machasya. He would bring 10 butchers from mas machasya or moisiv kamei. Amaki hechi dinamtish shiva b'kshura. They also get a piece of the action. They should totally be on.
Yeah.